The first question is, are there any plans for SQE2 to be taken in the UAE, Dubai, so that candidates don't incur travel expenses to the UK?
Um, that's certainly possible for the future. And I know we've looked at locations for both SQE1, which is already a run outside the UK, and potentially SQE2. As we get more news, it will appear in the updates that I've mentioned. It'll appear on LinkedIn, and it will appear on the assessment website. That is what I tend to call the Kaplan website, but it's the SQE assessment website. It really depends on finding suitable locations where there is, first of all, where there's enough numbers to justify running it, and secondly, where they can guarantee both the standard of the facilities and the security of the arrangements, in terms of, the monitoring, etc. So certainly we could be open to that in the future, but I haven't got any particular news on that at the moment. But you'll get more up-to-date information by contacting the Kaplan, the SQE assessment website, because as I say, those arrangements, they change and they adapt to the developing situation. So best to contact them, but it's certainly not something I would at all rule out for the future.
There are any plans to hold the SQE 4 times a year, the SQE1, 4 times a year, rather than 2 as it is now?
It is possible. It's something where we will be looking at more annually, and I'm trying to remember it now, but we certainly put something on our website a little while ago which proposed a kind of increasing number of SQE assessments, up to possibly a maximum of 4. But it very much depends on the level of demand. There are still obviously many people going through the old route. They have, perhaps I should have mentioned, I don't think I mentioned in my presentation, but people who are on the old route and already started, they can complete and be admitted under that old route. They have until the end of 2032 to do that. So they have quite a number of years. That allows people studying part-time, etc. And so obviously as time goes on between now and 2032, the numbers needing to do the SQE will increase gradually, kind of incrementally. And as such, we will then be running more assessments. You may then it takes a certain amount of time to mark, so it may mean that another assessment has happened before when you've passed it, you can sign on to the next SQE2 assessment. But we are working with very closely with Kaplan and also with Pearson VUE, who run the assessment centres themselves, to ensure that it's as smooth a process as possible.
The SQE sample questions are said to be shorter and easier than the questions in the real assessment. How is the SRA assisting individuals who will be undertaking the SQE exam in July when there are no practice questions like the assessment? Also, the second part of this question is also, why are we not provided more sample questions to practice?
I think it shows that the exam is in its early days. As exams go on in time, we tend to develop a bigger bank of questions. And the process to develop questions is quite involved, because first of all, the question has to be checked that it covers the right law, that it's set at the right level. And then also a very careful comparison is done of questions that are used on the exam that's being taken, say, in July, compared to the previous one, so that the standard is the same. And again, the pass mark may be slightly adjusted to reflect that if the questions are slightly harder or easier. And all that takes quite a bit of time and effort. The cost of the assessments, which is about 1,500 for SQE1 and about 2,500 for SQE2. There's no profit element in that. The cost of that reflects the actual cost of developing and delivering the exam, and quite a lot of that is the people's expert time in developing these questions and then having them going through this moderation process to ensure it's exactly fair and that the standard that people qualify at is exactly the same across time as well as across each assessment. So I hope that kind of answers it, but as soon as we get more sample questions that we can issue, we will do so, and that's a subject of constant discussion with Kaplan. Just in case people also wonder, it's Kaplan's job to develop those questions, but we liaise with them, review the questions, etc. So they do have different pairs of eyes on them as well.
What has the SRA done to improve the pass rate from 2021?
Well, the pass rate is set at the standard of a newly qualified solicitor. So broadly it is, does this person know enough functioning law so that they don't mislead their clients or give them bad advice? And do they have the skills to handle their clients in the right way, such as in a client interview? Do they ask the right questions? If they're doing the advocacy section, do they ask the right questions of the court and present the facts? Those kind of things. And it's not meant to be how can I put it? It's not meant to be something where it's fantastic to get 100%. What we're looking for is competence. We're looking for competence, and competence really means safe practice. So our aim is to always keep that standard the same. The pass rate may vary according to, for instance, the candidates that we get. And I think, that in turn reflects the fact that there are very different cohorts of people. Some have been waiting for many years for their chance to become a solicitor. Others may be qualified lawyers who have already gone part way down the route and now see it as their chance to get in and finish that process. So there's a great variety of people taking the assessments, and that again may impact the pass rates that are seen in each exam. So if the fundamental idea is always to be fair, and that is what we aim at, even though it may mean that in a particular cohort, a higher proportion of people pass, and then the next cohort, a different proportion of people pass. I hope that's clear. It's because assessment is quite an exact science, and a lot of statistics are used and a lot of analysis to ensure that the pass mark and the way that people gain their particular mark is completely fair. And actually, just in case anyone's got any questions or doubts about it, we do have quite a lot of material on our website about how we developed that. It's actually in a policy development section because it's not of practical interest to most people. But if you look on our website in About Us, and there's a section on how we developed our policies, and there's a section in there which has all the archive documents about how we developed the SQE and the way that the assessment was designed.
Is there a limit to how many times we can take the exams if we fail?
What happens is that if you fail any of the SQE is complicated. We say it's one exam, but it's taken in two bits, SQE1 and SQE2. But in fact, SQE1, as I mentioned briefly, is divided into two sessions. So you do SQE1, you do two exams, basically, that count as SQE1. So we have three elements: the first part of SQE1, the second part of SQE1, and SQE2. If you fail any of those three, then you get another attempt to do the ones you have failed. And then you get a third attempt, finally, to try and mop up the ones you failed. If at the end of you having those three attempts, you've still got one of those three components, one or more of those three components that you've failed, then we require you to wait 6 years from the point at which you first took the first assessment. And that the idea of that is that you can go away, you're clearly not in the right place to become a solicitor at that point, but which gives you an opportunity to go away, maybe do some more work experience, some more study, and then come back after 6 years. But once you can come back after 6 years, you have to start again. You have to start again and pass all 3. Does that? I hope that makes sense. It's a slightly complicated bit of the regulations, but that's the position, and I hope that's clear to everyone. It's set out on our website if anyone is unsure about it.
Is it Kaplan or the SRA who prepares the exam questions?
It's Kaplan, but in discussion with us, and they have subject matter experts. We also have subject matter experts who scrutinise their work. Our role, I would describe it as quality assurance. It's not that we would ever get involved and actually sort of say this question's wrong, we'll set it ourselves. We would rather say we have concerns about this question either in terms of the content or in terms of the level, that we think it's possibly too hard or too easy, and therefore we'd send it back to Kaplan with our comments, and they would then review it until we are happy with the whole. So effectively, Kaplan write the questions, we quality assure them.
Can you make a separate application for each placement if your QWE validation request is denied? Is it denied as a whole, or can you say 3 out of 4 placements be accepted even if 1 is denied?
Yep, that's correct. Say you have 4 work placements of 6 months each, and on one of them there isn't any validation or confirmation from a solicitor. The other 3 will still count. But what I do say, and we consider this as a very serious matter, if an individual has met the requirements for qualifying work experience, it is the solicitor's responsibility, if they go to a solicitor, to do that, to sign them off. We can take action against a solicitor if they are refusing to sign off something that is genuinely SQE, that is genuinely QWE, that meets the standard. And what I would say is those inquiries are actually handled by our ethics helpline, which is, the number and everything is on our website. But the ethics helpline obviously would regard it as an ethical failure if someone had clearly met the requirements for QWE and the solicitor was refusing to sign them off. As a reminder, and if any solicitors are out there who have been approached on QWE and are thinking about it, you are not being asked to confirm this individual's competence. The SQE tests their competence. All you're being asked to say is, did they work in my firm? How long did they work there? And were they involved in providing legal services?
Because I am qualified. I am a qualified lawyer from India.
Yeah.
Do I require SQE1, SQE2 assessments, and as well as qualifying work experience in England and Wales?
Well, as a qualified lawyer from India, you can certainly apply for exemptions from the SQE. For SQE1, you would probably, and this is just my personal view, this is not an official SRA position because every case is different, but you would probably need to show knowledge of English law as well as Indian law. Now, I know that there is a lot of Indian law which is very similar to English law, but I mentioned those procedural elements such as, how to convey land. The processes for that might be quite different in England and Wales or in India. I mean, for the same reason, we don't give SQE one exemptions to solicitors from Scotland. They have to apply on an individual basis if they've worked in England for years or something, and they say, yes, I know English law. But for a lot of lawyers, if you have just practiced in India, then you may struggle to get an exemption from SQE1. SQE2 is quite a different matter. Now, our understanding from correspondence with the Bar Council of India is that there isn't the equivalent in India of the 2 years training contract. So at the moment, on the information we've got. We haven't got one of those exemptions that I mentioned for the whole profession, like we have for, you know, Denmark and the other, quite a lot of European countries, Brazil, Hong Kong, a few different places. There's not one of those in place currently for India, although obviously we're open to receiving more information. But you can still apply for an SQE2 assessment on an individual basis. We do know that Indian lawyers have the practice rights and the skills, which are very similar to those in England. What that individual will probably need to show is that they've got 2 years of work experience after they've qualified. So they've qualified as an advocate of India, and they have then got 2 years experience after that. That's a broad outline. I can't talk about, you know, specifics, because when you make your application, which is all set out on the website how to do it, we will look at it. But that hopefully gives you enough information to think about whether to make an application.
What are the costs of the SQE1 and SQE2, and are there any prep courses?
Well, the costs are, and I haven't got the exact figures to hand, but they're about 1,500 for the SQE1, which, as I say, is done on the computer, and it consists of 2 days. For SQE2, it's 2,500, and that reflects the fact that it has to have these assessment stations, as I mentioned, where you have a set live assessors and actors playing the part of the clients. So those are the costs. Well, sorry, was there another bit to that question? So costs
and the prep courses.
Prep courses. Ah, yes.
Required recommended.
We do what in the past with the LPC, we used to say these are the LPC providers, and here they are. We don't anymore kind of license providers like that. We just list them. We don't endorse any particular providers. We don't say these are the best or whatever. We hope in the future to be able to have statistics on their performance, the pass rates. But we're still kind of in the stage of working towards that. What I would say is, have a look at the information on our website where we list them. It's in the SQE section. It says SQE training providers, and see what is suitable for you as an individual. For instance, quite a few now are offering online courses which you can do in the evening or weekend or your spare time according to what you need, and so you can mix it more easily with work. There are also, of course, the traditional big players of the University of Law and BPP, who are offering a whole range of courses, but including that is the more traditional kind of a prep course where you just go and study with them. Those are, of course, more costly. So hopefully people can reach the right decision in case what they need, and also the right price point. I will say that overall, the prices for most courses on average are very substantially lower than that for the legal practice course. Of course, on top of that, you've got the SQE assessment cost. But again, that is very much smaller than the old LPC cost, which, you know, was starting at around £10,000.
Is there any support for funding of the SQE?
You can apply individually for funding, like a bursary from the Law Society. They do some bursaries, it's very limited. Some banks may do study loans. Now, we were in the process of producing some guidance on that. I'll contact you afterwards, Arun, and with a link to that guidance, because it may be very, very useful for some people. And I can't remember about the exact details of the guidance, but we did put some out. The other thing I would say, opportunity to mention something that actually I think I ought to add a slide on, really, for future such presentations, is apprenticeships. We very much support the apprenticeship initiative. We believe it's a great way to qualify in any profession, and we have integrated SQE with the apprenticeships so that you can do a solicitor apprenticeship either from scratch or after you do a degree, and you will get full funding for that. Your employer will be supported on it, and the cost of the SQE exams are also included. So the cost to you as an individual is nothing. Obviously, they're in high demand. We are really encouraging law firms to roll out more apprenticeships. And that's something, and also the Law Society as the representative body for those firms, again, is very much supporting us in that. So I hope in the future to see a lot more solicitor apprenticeships and a lot more people coming in through that route, which the early indications, I think, the last time I saw a report on this, I think apprentices have done particularly well in the SQE assessments compared to other types of candidates. So that was a very encouraging sign.
And that is incredible to hear. Perfect. Well, I mean, I think that's all the questions. And thank you again so much, Tim, for your time today and for answering all these questions. So just to remind you, we will be sending around details about the SQE and some of the links that was provided at the end of the presentation to today's attendees and our members. We at the Association of British Tamil Lawyers wanted to thank you, Tim, and everyone behind the scenes, Libby, and of course our own interns for making this event happen. ABTL is a non-profit membership association and is the first organization of its kind sitting at the heart of both the Tamil and legal communities in the UK. And we're very, very proud of the work that we're trying to do to make the legal sector more diverse. So thank you again, Tim, for all your time today. And hopefully that has helped as many people as possible today with questions around the SQE.
Mm-hmm.